In today's video, I'm gonna show you how to use content in a personal brand to stop chasing and start attracting high ticket clients to you, even if you have a small audience and nobody knows who you are right now. Now, everything you've been told about landing clients is making it harder than it needs to be. And it's taken me 7 years and over $30,000 in courses, in-person masterminds, coaching, mentorships, and all kinds of shit like that, and landing over 50 high ticket clients in order to figure this out. Now, if you're a freelancer, consultant, coach, or online service provider, and you've been grinding away at cold outreach, cold DMs, cold email, submitting Upwork proposals, all that fun type of stuff, or just trying to close clients on sales calls who have literally never heard of you before, first off, that's exactly what I did for literally years. And second, it's not that landing clients is hard, it's that the way you've been doing it is making it hard. And there's a massive difference between those two things. And basically every single month, you're starting from zero. Because you wake up, you open your laptop and you're hunting, you're chasing, you're competing with people all over the world who are way cheaper than you, but are way worse at what you offer. And you're getting on calls with strangers who are talking with 5 other people, basically auditioning, hoping that they pick you. And the worst part is that even when it works and you do land the client, you get that instant, really good, exciting feeling. But then you know deep down that next month, you're gonna be back to square one doing the same exact thing to try and land more. Because here's the thing, nothing you're doing right now actually compounds, and nothing that you're building right now is gonna make tomorrow easier or landing clients easier. And that's the part that nobody talks about. It's not just that cold outreach is exhausting, because it fucking is, it sucks. But it's also that it's not actually building anything. Now in this video, I'm gonna show you how to flip this entirely and give you exactly what I wish I had 7 years ago when I first got started, where instead of having to chase after clients, you have them coming to you. Where instead of competing on price, you have people choosing you because of who you are. And where instead of starting from scratch every month, you're actually building something that grows and compounds and makes it easier and easier over time to land clients. I'm gonna show you the exact step-by-step system that I call the Content to Client OS that turns who you are, what you already know, and what you've lived through into inbound high-ticket clients. And again, even with a small audience, even if nobody knows who you are right now. I know of creators who have ridiculously small audiences who you wouldn't think are really making any money whatsoever and who are literally making millions of dollars per year, and they're landing their clients literally completely organically through their social media and their personal brand. And it's because they have an actual operating system and strategy behind their personal brand and their client acquisition system. There's a million creators out there telling you to just build a personal brand. And most of them have huge audiences, and most of them are not talking about what it's actually like to have 200 followers and still need to land clients next month. In a nutshell, this video is about using your personal brand and your content as the vehicle to land high ticket clients. So I'm gonna go deep. Like I said, this isn't just a be authentic and post more content type of video. That shit is useless. I'm gonna break down the actual framework, the thinking behind it, and the actual steps that you can take right after watching this video to start turning your content into clients. Cool? Let's get into it. First off, making content and building my personal brand has genuinely changed my life, and I don't mean that in some cliche, cheesy way. I genuinely mean it in terms of building my business and landing clients. Because I'll be honest with you, I hate sales. I absolutely hate sales. I hate taking sales calls. And I've literally gone to in-person masterminds, taken so many courses and everything on sales, objection handling, all of that. I was even a fucking life insurance agent selling on the phone for a period, and I absolutely hate it. Having to like close clients and almost persuade them in a way, it's just not me. And even with my marketing agency and landing over 50 high ticket clients over the years, the majority of it was on sales calls where I was following a script and I'd literally get to the objection handling part and be reading from it in order to handle their objections. And I'd have people literally leave the call because they could tell what I was doing. And it was miserable. I hated it. Now it was like that until I started leveraging content and building my personal brand. And I'll mention it again here in a bit, but literally now whenever I hop on calls, I have no script. I just hop on, talk with the person like I'm a good friend, like he's sitting across from me at coffee, seeing how I could help him. And then boom, I land a high ticket client who's paying me thousands of dollars a month. And I'll dive into why and how here in just a second. But if some part of you is still thinking that I just need to send more cold emails, or I just need to submit more Upwork proposals, or I just need to improve my cold outreach, and maybe making content and building my personal brand just is a waste of my time right now, then look, I get it. I had those same thoughts, and to be totally honest with you, those are the thoughts that kept me stuck for literally years. I've been in the online business game for 7 years now, And I skipped the traditional path, no college, no 9 to 5, just a kid who wanted freedom and to eventually be able to buy his red Audi R8 GT, as you can see behind me, and was willing to do whatever the fuck it took in order to make that happen. And my lord, is that easier said than done. And it took literally over a year and a half before I saw any progress with my business at all. And I lost over $20,000 in that first period before literally making any money. But for the longest time, I was running a marketing agency. And on paper, we were actually doing pretty well. And we ended up growing to making over $30,000 a month in revenue, not profit. And we had clients, we had good systems in place, and it was going pretty good. But here's what was actually happening behind the scenes. Pretty much every client that we landed came through cold outreach, cold emails, and Upwork proposals. Those were our main two avenues. Literally grinding on those platforms every single day in order to keep growing. And to be honest, I got pretty good at it. I'm not gonna lie, the systems worked quite well, but it was what it was attracting that was the problem. Lower quality clients, lower ticket projects, and people who were honestly kind of a pain in the ass to work with. People who were price shopping me against 10 other freelancers and just picking the cheapest option. And with AI nowadays, you're not just competing with people, you're competing with machines. Now, a few years ago, I was living in Cape Town, South Africa, and every day I would go to work at the WeWork office downtown on my agency. And a massive part of my day, I'm talking literally 5 to 6 hours a day, was sending cold emails. And it was so tedious, so mind-numbingly boring that I kid you not, I had my computer and then I had my iPad next to me, and I would have a movie playing on my iPad while I was sending the emails. Every single day, I'd be able to watch around 2 to 3 movies while doing this. Literally, a monkey could have been doing what I was doing. And one day, I'm sitting there, sending cold emails, watching some movie, and I had somewhat of an epiphany. I thought to myself, if I keep doing this every single day, sending cold emails for 4 to 6 hours a day, what will I actually have built by the end of the year? Nothing. No audience, no reputation, no leverage, no asset, nothing. I'd still be sitting in this exact same chair. Well, not literally that exact same chair, but still sending cold emails starting from 0 every single month. But then I thought about the alternative. What if instead of spending those hours every single day sending cold emails, which only reach one person at a time, I spent it creating content that had the potential of reaching hundreds, thousands, and even millions of people, with a small portion of those people being really good potential clients. And if I posted content like that every single day, then by the end of the year in December, it's very likely I would have actually built something real, an audience of potential buyers. A library of content working for me while I sleep, pre-selling people on the idea of working with me before ever having talked to them. And the most exciting thing, having clients coming to me, reaching out to want to work with me instead of me having to chase after them, begging for their business. A machine that compounds and makes client acquisition easier over time. Not harder, not the same, easier. And that's when it really clicked for me, because when you send one cold email or you submit an Upwork proposal or whatever you're doing in terms of outreach, then it gets sent to one person, one. And if they're not interested, it's dead. That effort is gone. But when you post a piece of content, that one video that you put the same amount of effort into that you might have put into that one email has the potential of reaching hundreds, thousands, even millions of people, with a portion of those people being potential clients and having them actually come to you instead of chasing them down. And that's the difference between hunting and farming. Cold outreach is hunting. You eat what you kill that day, and then you have to start over the next day in order to survive. Content is farming. You plant seeds, you water them, and then eventually the harvest comes to you. And most freelancers and anybody building something online are hunting pretty much every single month, every single day. It's exhausting and a pain in the ass, and you're constantly wondering why it doesn't get easier and where this is going. And that's because you're not actually building anything that compounds and allows it to be easier later down the road. Now, let me be clear about something. My story is not that nothing worked and then I magically figured it out. It's not some rags to riches fairy tale. And it's sure as hell not that I started in business and then a few months later was making $10,000 a month. Not even fucking close. Like I said before, it took me literally years before I started making any money, and I lost over $20,000 in my first year, just flat out gone, because nothing I did worked. But when I did start to gain traction with the agency, I made a decent bit of money and scaled it up. But I also got stuck in the wrong model, and when things went sideways, and they very badly did, I ended up realizing I built a house on sand. I'm in Cape Town right now. It's currently May 19th, 2023. The one deal I got here in Cape Town was the $5,000 deal, which ended up getting disputed because they were pissed off and everything. So that 5 grand actually got taken. We're still currently in credit card debt by about probably $7,000 at the moment. And we still owe for the Airbnb because we haven't paid for that yet. And that's gonna be another $4,100. So in total, we're in debt about probably 12 grand. Overall, like everything that could go wrong. Oh, and my motorcycle got stolen. It gets better. And my motorcycle, my $6,000 or $7,000 KTM Duke 390 that I fell in love with, the closest thing I've had to a relationship in 20 years, got stolen from outside the office last week. So yeah, so that's gone, and I'm just losing all my clients. I have no money, I'm in debt. I'm having to give him a refund. So yeah, overall things are not going well. So to say the least, it was not the most fun time for me. And I was absolutely terrified because the methods I had for landing clients weren't even close to consistent or reliable enough for me to be confident that I could turn things around. And that was rock bottom for me, and kind of the catalyst that made me decide to make a change, where I decided to go all in on content and building my personal brand in order to attract clients instead of chasing them. And last year, I was able to launch a new personal branding agency and grow it to over $6,000 a month in just a handful of months. And I asked every single client why they decided to go with me over other options, because honestly, I was mainly just video editing, so it was quite the commodity. And they literally told me it was because they checked out my content on my social media, and it was because of my personal brand. Like one dude who was my main client, he literally decided to work with me because A, we both lived in Colorado, and B, he was also super into sports and athletics and noticed that I raced motocross. So he had that connection with me that made him want to work with me, and I was way more expensive than anybody else that they were talking to. It wasn't because of a cold email, it wasn't because of some upward proposal or some hack or strategy or tactic that I used in my outreach or anything like that. And it wasn't because of some sales tactic that I used on the call. It was because they'd watched my stuff, trusted me, and by the time we got on the call, pretty much already knew they wanted to work with me. We just had to chat and see if it was a good fit and talk about how it would work. Remember how I said I hate sales calls? Well, I kid you not, every single call I've gotten on to try and land a client ever since I started building my personal brand and making content has literally been more of that casual chat where we're like sitting across from each other having coffee, and I'm basically just like, hey man, like what are you looking for help with? Seeing how I could help, and then boom, getting started from there. Because my content already did the warming up and the selling for me. I didn't even have a script, and I used to be the guy who would follow the script to a T because I didn't want to say anything stupid that would lose the sale. And the cool thing is that I was able to land those clients without a massive audience. I've made over 2,000 Instagram videos over the years, just across different Instagram profiles, and over 150 YouTube videos, and grew one of my Instagram profiles, which is now my personal one, from a few hundred followers to over 13,000 in just a couple months after finding my winning content format, which I'll get into that here in a bit. And my current profile only sits at just over 4,000 followers, at least at the time of recording this. And I've got like an average view count per video of about 40,000 views, at least when I took the average of like the last 30 videos or something like that. And with some of my videos hitting hundreds of thousands of views. So my point is you don't need 100,000 followers to start landing clients. You just need the right system with the right content, hitting the right people. That's it. All right, so overall, cold outreach is a hamster wheel. You run harder, but you end up in the same spot. Now, content is leverage. Every piece you make compounds, every video is a seed, and every follower is a potential client who now knows something about you. And once you understand that, the question is no longer, should I build a personal brand? The question is, how do I build one that attracts the right people and makes me the obvious choice for them to work with? And every day you wait is a day that someone else is planting their flag in the space that you should be owning. And I'm not the guy with 1 million followers telling you to just build a personal brand. I'm the guy who's exactly where you are, trying to make content work while still needing to land clients to pay the bills, and figured out how to actually make those two things work together. That's the lane, and that's who this video is for. All right, now that we're on the same page about why this is the best possible way to land clients, let me show you why most people who go down this path still end up getting stuck. Now, most people building something online who try to use content to land clients fall into one of two traps, sometimes both. Now, first is the cold outreach grinder, and this is the person who's still stuck believing that landing clients is about volume and hustle. So they end up pouring all of their energy into cold outreach, sending cold DMs, cold emails, submitting upward proposals, and just constantly think that if I just send enough of these, something will hit. And sometimes it does. They land a client here and there, make some money, pay the bills, but every single month, they wake up hungry. The client they landed last month, either the project ended, they're a pain in the ass, they're not referring anybody, or they were just a one-off. So the grinder opens up their laptop and starts from scratch, sending the same cold email templates, same DMs, submitting proposals to strangers who are comparing them to 10 other options who do the exact same thing. And what sucks is that this person works their ass off. They're not lazy, they're not unmotivated. They're just grinding on a model that will never compound. Ever. And deep down, the person knows, they feel it. They know they should be building something that makes client acquisition easier over time and actually compounds and grows and can eventually be something that works while they sleep and is something that attracts instead of chases. But they don't know how, or they've tried content and it just didn't work, or they're just too busy grinding to even be able to think about it. And so they stay stuck running harder on the same wheel and wondering why it never gets easier. And that's exactly who I was for 3 years while running my first agency. Now the second trap is what happens when somebody finally breaks out of being the grinder and they know that content is the way, personal branding is the way, they start posting, they keep showing up, but they fall into a different trap, the niche prisoner. Now this person is actually doing some things right. They're posting consistently, their content is relatively good, they're providing value in their niche, they might even be getting some decent views. But here's the problem. If you went to their audience and asked, tell me about this creator, the answer would most likely be something along the lines of, oh yeah, no, their content's good, I enjoy it, I've learned a lot about video editing or real estate or freelancing, copywriting, web design, whatever the niche is. But then if you asked, what are they like as a person? What do they value? What are their interests? What's their story? What do they do outside of work? The answer would most likely be, I have no fucking clue. Blank stare, nobody knows. And that's the trap. Because people don't pay thousands of dollars to work with the most informative Instagram account. They pay to work with the person that they like, trust, respect, admire, and feel the most connected to. Let me give you a perfect example of this. My mom and her twin sister are both real estate agents in Colorado, and they've both been doing it for about 28 years. And they're literally twins. From a distance, I kid you not, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. And if you don't know them, you would think that they look identical. So same skill level, same credentials, same experience, same market, and even same look. Now imagine both of them just posted super niche real estate content. Tips about the Denver market, how to stage your home, current mortgage rates, all that standard stuff. If a potential client came across the both of them, they'd have no idea who to work with. It'd be a coin flip. There'd be no reason for them to pick one over the other. No differentiator at all. But here's the thing. My mom's twin sister is super into water skiing. She literally competes as a water skier. But my mom is obsessed with motocross. She literally used to race herself, and my entire family grew up around racing and motocross and dirt bikes, and my brother and I have literally raced our entire life. Now imagine the same potential client is also super into motocross. Now which agent are they most likely to pick? Not even a question. My mom, slam dunk. Now here's the crazy part. That decision had literally nothing to do with her talent, her skills, her credentials, or anything related to real estate. It had everything to do with who she is as a person. That's what the niche prisoner will never get because they're too busy trying to become the best in their niche and have completely erased all of their personality and what makes them who they actually are from their content. They've basically turned themselves into a commodity, a replaceable educational account, which we know there's plenty of those. And the moment another account shows up teaching the same thing and potentially better, they have nothing to compete with. So the idea of pick a niche, be the thing guy, and become an expert in one area or field, that's not building a personal brand, that's building a prison. And more importantly, it's a prison that actually repels the exact type of high-ticket clients that you're looking to attract. Because think about what happens. You build your audience around being the real estate investing guy. So every video is about real estate. Your whole identity online is this one topic. And then one day you pivot your business, start a new one or some new venture, and then wake up and realize, I don't even want to talk about real estate anymore. I want to talk about my new venture and my new business and use my audience to try and land clients and customers and grow that thing. And I also don't just want to talk about my business and what I do professionally. I want to talk about the other stuff I'm interested in and what I've got going on in my life and what I'm all about. But here's the thing, you can't. Because the moment that you post something outside of your niche in your area of expertise, your audience feels betrayed because that's the only thing they followed you for. So now your engagement tanks, none of your content's working, and you feel stuck. So here's the golden line I want you to write down. There's virtually zero competition for being who you are. Everybody is fighting to be the best in their niche. The best video editor, the best copywriter, the best web designer, the best whatever. But nobody can compete with being you. That's what makes you one of one, and that's what makes everybody want to pay you to work with you over everybody else who does the exact same thing. Now I'm gonna walk you through the actual exact system that makes all this work. And and I call it the Content to Client OS, and it has 3 parts. Think of it like this. The first part is your brand North Star, and that's the direction that everything points towards. Without it, you're just making content that doesn't attract the right people, leads nowhere, and is basically just a waste of your time. Now, the second part is your content compass, and that's how you actually create content that attracts the right people and pre-sells them on the idea of working with you. And the third part is your inbound flywheel, and that's the back-end system that turns all of these eyeballs and all this attention that we're getting into high-paying clients. North Star, compass, flywheel. Each one builds upon the last, but if any of them is missing, then the entire system falls apart. Now let's get into it. Now, before you even think about posting a single piece of content or another piece of content and think about what to say, how to say it, and all this stuff, you need to get crystal clear on 2 things. First, who you actually are, and second, who it is you're talking to. And I know that sounds basic as fuck, but I promise you that almost nobody actually does this correctly. And it's the reason their content just feels off, forced, forgettable, doesn't work very well, and why they just can't seem to attract or land any clients with it. And if you're already making content, but you really don't enjoy it or flat out hate making content, then this is why. Most of the social media experts and personal branding gurus online skip past the first part entirely and jump directly to figuring out your avatar and skip past the part where you figure out who you actually are. But that's backwards, because part of being able to attract and speak specifically, directly, and deeply to your target avatar is first understanding who you are and who you aren't. Because your dream clients are almost always similar to you. They share the same interests, values, beliefs, their view on the world, similar personality, and all those sorts of things. So the more you understand who you are and who you aren't, the more you'll be able to understand who you're actually talking to and be able to resonate with them more, speak more deeply to their pains, fears, insecurities, what they want, what they don't want, all those sorts of things, and the more they'll be able to connect with and resonate with you. So let's start there. Who you are. So here's something that I've learned after making over 2,000 videos on Instagram, is that there's 2 types of content that I've made. The first type is content I felt that I should make, content that I kind of pulled myself to do and forced myself to do. Maybe I saw another creator in my space or just somebody making this type of content and it worked really well for them, or I was following some tactic, strategy, or something like that. And that content, the content that didn't really feel like me, always performed worse. Even now, when I find myself making that type of content, then it literally will sometimes get less than 1,000 views or maybe just a few thousand. But when I look at it again, it like feels cringe, kind of cliche and weird. And it just feels off because it doesn't feel like me. It feels like I'm showing up as somebody that I'm not, and I'm trying to like put out this character that just isn't me. Now the second type is content that I actually want to make and I'm excited to make and usually enjoy making. And it's content that I'll literally rewatch myself, that I'm proud of, and that I'd honestly make even if nobody else in the world was able to see it. And I'll honestly gain a lot of value from that content that I make, and it's because I made it for a younger version of me, or even my current self, because maybe it was just a message or something that I needed to hear, because you need to be reminded more than you need to be taught. So this type of content is a lot of the time just content that I'm using to remind myself of things that I already know, but that I just might have forgotten about and needed to kind of get slapped in the face again. And that content, there's no comparison. It regularly gets tens of thousands of views, and a lot of my videos have gotten hundreds of thousands of views going that direction. So here's the thing I want you to understand, is that being yourself and being authentic with your content isn't some woo-woo or motivational thing or whatever. It's actually what makes content work. Because when you're being yourself, your energy is different, your voice is different, your tonality is different, how you come across on camera is different, and your audience recognizes it, they can see it, and they can feel whether you're actually being yourself and being real and mean what you say, or if you're just performing like most of the people on social media are. And that brings up a point I love talking about now, where obviously AI is moving so fast and is getting so good that I even heard Gary Vee talk about how there is going to be hundreds of millions of creators on social media that are literally AI. But the thing is, the more fake content that there is out there and fake people, the higher the value of the real people, the authentic people, and the human connection is going to be. So the people who actually embrace this concept are the ones who are gonna really kill it when AI is like flooding social media and all these platforms. But overall, I think this is actually one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they first start making content, is that they turn it into work and just another task that they have to check off the list for the day, instead of making it something they enjoy. They focus so much on the strategies, hacks, templates, and systems that other creators and other people are doing that it strips literally all of the personality and what makes them them from their content. And when you do that, there's nothing left that allows you to stand out. You just become another face in the crowd saying the same thing that a bunch of other people are saying. But when you treat content as a form of art, a creative masterpiece almost that only you could make, then it becomes something that's actually enjoyable, something you're proud of, something you enjoy doing, and ironically, at the same time, ends up performing the best because it's actually you. And it's something that only you could make that nobody else could because it came from your own level of creativity, taste, perspective, experiences, skills, and all those sorts of things instead of just following some template or script or format or whatever the hell that other people are pushing all over social media. So how do you actually get clear on who you are? Now, the first thing that I'd recommend, which I know this sounds kind of cliche because it's going around so much now, but it's because it honestly works and it was a game changer for me when I did it, is mapping out your ikigai. Now, I won't go deep into this because you can look it up or even ask ChatGPT or Claude to help you map this out and put it together, which I would highly recommend. But basically, your ikigai consists of 4 different parts, which is what you're good at, what you love doing, what you think the world needs, and what you could be paid for. And then the intersection of those 4 things is your ikigai, which the meaning of ikigai in Japanese, because it's actually a Japanese concept and term, is literally reason for being. So it's almost like your purpose or your reason for living and what you're meant to do. And what's funny is that when you actually sit down to do this and you put in some time and some effort doing it, you'll start to actually reveal things and dig stuff out that have been buried deep, and you'll start noticing the patterns and the different skills, interests, and all sorts of things that have kind of always been in your life that maybe just got buried deep down and you haven't thought of in a while. But it really helps you get a grasp of who you actually are and who you're not. So I'd highly recommend it. So definitely do that first. Now the second thing, and this is something that almost nobody does, but it's honestly been one of the biggest game changers for me overall, especially after mapping out my ikigai, which I think is really important to do first. But this second part is writing out your manifesto. And when I say manifesto, I'm not talking about putting together a vision board or any of that or the manifestation woo-woo bullshit. I'm talking about sitting down and getting laser specific about where and who you see yourself being in the future. Mine is literally 23 pages long with photos, breakdowns, tons of writing, the whole shebang. And the more specific you get, the more your actual direction shows up because your values show up in what you're writing, your priorities show up, your interests show up, and who you actually are shows up. And once you know who you are, you'll have something that almost nobody else out there has, which is a clear picture of the person whose brand you're actually building. And it's funny how almost nobody does this. If you go up to somebody and you ask them like, hey, what do you want? Like, where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years or 10 years? Then their answer is almost immediately gonna start with, and they're gonna have to think for a second. And then they'll give you a very vague answer like, oh, well, I wanna be making a lot more money and I wanna probably live somewhere else and blah, 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 blah. But it's like super vague, which means they don't actually have a destination put in their GPS that they know that they're driving to and a way to figure out how to actually get there, which is really freaking important. All right, now let's get into the second piece of your brand North Star, which is who you're actually talking to, which is your dream avatar. Now, let me tell you a quick story. A few years ago, I was building my personal brand on different Instagram profiles, and I was just randomly posting and putting out content without really knowing what the hell I was doing. I was throwing stuff out there, seeing what worked. I was making content on mindset, online business, advertising, running ads on Facebook, more personal development, and basically whatever crossed my mind that day. And my videos would literally get just like a couple hundred views, sometimes less than 100 views. And I thought the quality was relatively decent. I was staying consistent. I was posting once every day, but nothing was working. But looking back, the reason is pretty obvious. I never actually mapped out and put real effort into who I was trying to attract and who I was talking to. So I was basically making content for everyone, which means I was making content for no one. Then I decided to pivot and start making content around motocross because I had raced motocross my entire life. That's probably the space that I knew the most about at the time. I knew all about the techniques, the mindset, the struggles, the routines, the everything. So I could speak very specifically about things that only another motocrosser would really be able to understand. And something shifted immediately because when I started making this content, I wasn't making it for everybody. I was literally making it for the younger version of myself as a racer. The kid who was struggling with nerves before races, the kid who would do great in practice or training, but then would show up at the race and basically freeze because he couldn't perform because of what was going on up here. And the kid who trained his ass off, but just didn't see the progress that he was looking for. I was speaking to a very specific person, and that was the content that all of a sudden started popping off. And I grew from a few hundred followers to over 13,000 in literally just a couple months, and I attracted the right audience, which was motocrossers and other extreme sports athletes. And it wasn't because I magically got better at making content. My content was no better in terms of quality, editing, camera setup, or any of that shit. It was because I finally actually knew who I was talking to. Most people think that when you start talking to a specific person and you get laser specific about who you're talking to, that it'll limit your reach and the audience that you can build. But the opposite is true, because when you speak to a very specific person or avatar and you get so specific that it feels like you're inside their mind, then every other person who is dealing with that same thing is going to resonate so deeply with what you're talking about. You'll get comments from people saying things like, it feels like you're inside my mind, like how did you know that? And that's literally me right now, and all sorts of stuff like that. And that's the magic, because feeling understood is one of the most powerful human experiences that anybody can have. And when someone feels that through your content, they don't just become a follower, they become someone who trusts you and is primed to potentially work with you. Because generic content gets ignored, but very specific and deeply resonating content is the stuff that gets saved, shared, and eventually turns into client bookings. So when you combine those two things, a clear picture of who you actually are and who it is you're talking to, you now have your brand North Star. You know who you are, you know who you're guiding, and now every piece of content becomes directional instead of random. You're not posting stuff hoping it sticks, you're not copying some other creator or copying some strategies or templates or hacks or anything and chasing trends. Instead, you're building something intentional, something aligned, and something that only you could build, because it's built around you and for a very specific person. And without it, honestly, everything else in this system falls apart, but with it, everything else flows together and becomes way easier. It's time to create content that actually attracts the right eyeballs and turns them into clients. This is your content compass, and there's 3 core things that I want to break down that will allow you to rise above the noise and become one of one. First is finding your winning content format, which I mentioned earlier in the video. Second is the 3 types of content that you need to be making. Third, the controversial but arguably most important thing that almost guarantees you'll blow past everybody else in your space and make a shitload of money through your personal brand. All right, let's start with your winning format, because this is the foundation that pretty much everything else is built on top of. So most creators get content wrong because they obsess over the wrong things, and I used to do this exact same thing. They obsess over hooks, editing hacks, their camera setup, what to say, how to say it, trending audios, and don't even get me started on hashtags. Now, I'm not saying that stuff isn't important, except hashtags, that shit does not matter, but none of those things move the needle the most, not even close. The single most important thing to figure out, and I say this as somebody who's made over 2,000 Instagram videos and helped over 50 clients build their businesses using social media, is finding your winning content format. Let me explain what I mean. Think of any top creator with a massive audience who does really, really well with their business, who you follow. I guarantee the majority of their content looks and feels the same or very similar. Not the same topic, the same format, the same style of video, the same energy, the same structure. That's not a coincidence. They found their winning format and went all in on it. Now, when I was making motocross content, I tried everything before and after I got into making motocross content. I was trying different styles, different topics, different editing tricks, hacks, everything that you could do, and nothing was working. Then one day, I started filming at the track. In all my gear, I basically film a video in between each riding session. Like literally, I was still wearing my helmet, goggles, gloves, the whole shebang. And honestly, that wasn't even because of some strategy or because somebody told me to do that. It was just, it made recording content way easier, and I already knew that my target audience would grab their attention, because clearly it's a motocross racer in all of his gear at the track, so they're gonna pay attention to that. And it was me in my element at the track in between sessions recording the content when every thought and feeling was fresh in my mind. And that was it. That one format blew the whole thing up. And I actually not only grew my Instagram super quickly, but I also grew my YouTube channel from 0 to over 700 subscribers in literally just a couple months by making this style of videos. And then on Instagram, like I mentioned earlier, I grew from a few hundred followers to over 13,000 in that same period of a couple months. And I attracted the exact audience and people that I wanted: motocrossers and extreme sports athletes. And the same thing happened on my current profile. I posted over 100 times and gained 65 followers. 65. I was like, what the fuck? Then I changed one thing, my format. and I gained over 4,000 followers in literally just a couple months. And here's what I want you to understand about your winning format. It's not just the format that performs the best. It's the one that sits at the intersection of three things. One, you actually enjoy making it. Second, you're proud of it and will actually rewatch your own videos. Like I mentioned, I do with my own content now. And third, it actually performs and attracts the right people to your audience. If it only hits one or two of those, then it's not your winning format. It's just something that might work temporarily. Because if you enjoy making it and you're proud of it, but it doesn't perform well and doesn't attract the right people, then you have a hobby. You don't have a business tool. And if it performs, but you hate making it and it's a struggle to even pull yourself to make the content, then you'll burn out and stop making it after a few months. But when you find the format that hits all three, that's when things really start to compound and come together. Now we need to talk about what to actually make content about and how to think about the full scope of what your brand can cover. And here's how I started thinking about it, and it honestly made making content and just building my personal brand so much easier and honestly a lot more fun. Most people think of their personal brand like a single building inside of a massive city, which is social media. And they're trying to make that one building as tall and impressive as possible. I'm gonna be the best real estate building in this city, or I'm gonna be the best video editing building in this city, or whatever else. Which goes back to what we talked about earlier in the video with the niche prisoner. And here's the thing, that's not building a personal brand. That's just being a building in someone else's city. And a real personal brand, you are the city. And each building inside of your city represents a different pillar for who you are. Your values, your interests, your expertise, your stories, your personality. For me, I've got an extreme sports building where I talk about and show myself doing stuff like motocross, snowboarding, traveling, mountain biking, and just adventurous stuff. And I've got a mindset and personal development building where I talk about all sorts of things around mindset, psychology, neuroscience, relationships, and basically the mental side of building the life and the version of yourself that you actually want. And then I've got a personal branding and online business building, which the video you're watching right now fits into. Different audiences, different buildings, but the same city and one brand built around me. And the beauty is I can monetize each building separately within the same brand. I can add new buildings whenever I want to, so I'm never trapped. Now here's why this matters for your content, because once you start seeing your personal brand as its own city instead of one building, you no longer feel trapped or the pressure of making one specific type of content around one topic. And you stop feeling off brand when you talk about other things outside of your core offer, service, or whatever it is that you're looking to land clients for. Because anything that's part of who you are is a part of your city. And the content you make is basically your way of giving people tours of the different buildings. Some content brings people into your city from the outside. Some content walks them through your expertise, and other content shows them the more personal parts of who you are and your overall life. That's where the three types of content comes in: growth, authority, authenticity. Each one does a different job, a different type of tour through a different part of your city. Now first is growth content, and growth equals followers. This is how you bring new people into your city from the outside. This is the content that will grow your audience the most. Its whole purpose is to reach a much broader and wider audience. People who don't even know your city exists yet, and when it performs well, it brings new visitors into your city for them to check out your other content. For me, my growth content usually sits within my mindset and personal development buildings because I'm just super passionate and interested in that, and it also just naturally reaches a way wider audience. I'll talk about things like relationships, biohacking, mindset, self-development, and just stuff that naturally almost anybody can relate to and connect with and kind of gain value from. Now I make it broad enough where almost anybody on the planet can gain something from it, but I still do it through the lens of making it for my specific target avatar, Oliver. But I'm just broadening and framing the topic in a way that goes beyond just him. Now here's a couple examples that have gone pretty viral for me. Now one is a video about what to do if a girl tells you she's not ready for a relationship. Now that has literally nothing to do with my core offer or business and what I'm helping people with. But the way that I frame the video and dive into it is not like I'm trying to be a relationship coach, but I started off with that very broad hook that would grab a lot of people's attention, but then I frame it in a way that would really connect with my target avatar, Oliver. Because instead of diving into like what you should say, what you should text back and stuff like that, instead I said how it doesn't matter and how your sole focus should be on becoming the best possible version of yourself and aiming for that vision that you see in the future. And what's funny is that I think the video hit so deeply and resonated with so many people because it got a ton of comments and shares and saves and all of that. But I think it's because I actually made the video because right before I made it, I literally was told that by a girl. So all of those feelings and emotions and everything was completely fresh for me. And I honestly made that video more as a message to myself and what I knew I needed to hear, which is why it resonated with so many other people so deeply who were dealing with the same thing. Now, another one opened with red flags of men who sabotage everything. And then the way that I framed it once again was a lot more specific around the stuff that Oliver deals with and everything, but pretty broad hook. And basically I just dove into the specific things that I've noticed over the years that I've personally done that have sabotaged my own growth and everything. And that one seemed to resonate deeply with a lot of people. So broad topics, universal framing, but still filtered through who I am and using the lens of me talking to Oliver and the specific thoughts, doubts, worries, struggles that he has, what he wakes up worrying about, the things that he deals with in his life, that he struggles with, and all of those sorts of things. Also, this is important. Turn your personality up to a level 11 when you're making content, especially growth content. Be more opinionated. Don't hedge. Actually, say what you truly believe and lean all the way in on it like you freaking fully believe it. That's the stuff that gets shared and actually attracts your target people and repels everybody else. That's the stuff that will make people stop and say, who is this? And then they'll check out your profile and your other content. And that click to your profile is the moment where they walk from the outside to the inside of your city, and now they're a part of your ecosystem. If growth content is bringing people into your city, authority content is what convinces people to actually work with you while they're there. Growth brings people in, authority converts them. This is the content where you're showing that you're an expert in your field. So whatever your service, business, or offer, or whatever it is that you're doing and selling, this is the content you want to make where your target avatar and audience will see it and think, wow, this person really knows their shit. This is where you share strategies, results, lessons, and experiences while in your space. Lessons from your journey, frameworks that are specific to what you do. For me, this is the building where I talk about personal branding and online business. Diving into strategies, sharing stories and experiences from building my own personal brand and online businesses over the years, the mistakes I've made over the years of building those businesses and making content, the stories that led me from grinding away at cold outreach to using content and personal branding to land clients, and stories of landing clients specifically because of my content and my personal brand. This is content that's speaking directly to Oliver. It's not broad and it's not trying to speak to everyone. And here's something that I need you to understand because this is what trips up so many creators, including myself. Authority content is not meant to go viral. Now, it'd be amazing if it did, but it's very unlikely that it will, and this is the type of content that is most likely going to get way less views than your growth stuff. Because the reality is you don't need 1 million views on an authority video to be able to turn that into conversations and clients. I mean, it's fucking great when that does happen, and at some point it probably will after you put out enough stuff. Like something will probably hit that was an authority video, but I just want to set your expectations and be real with you because it's way less likely that an authority video is actually going to pop off and go super viral. The goal here is that you need the right people, the people who would actually become clients and who would resonate with your offer. Those are the ones that you want seeing this. What matters is not the view count. What matters is that the right person sees this piece of content and thinks, this is exactly what I need. And think about it. One authority video can get 500 views and lead to a couple people DMing you or a couple conversations that leads to one $5,000 client. So that's how it works. That's why the view count here does not matter. Now, here's the part that most creators miss completely. And this is probably the biggest difference between creators who are actually making boatloads of money through their personal brand and through their content and the influencers who have massive audiences but aren't making any money. Is that every single authority post that you make should have a call to action that leads to collecting that person's email. And here's why. Trying to sell on Instagram or the social platforms is brutal. The conversion rate is ridiculously low. And every single top creator and person who's making boatloads of money that I've learned from, like literally who are making millions of dollars a year through their personal brands, say that they make the majority of their income and revenue and sales through their emails by a landslide. So your email list is king. It's the only audience that you actually own. Because social media and these platforms can ban you tomorrow. Like you never really know what's gonna happen and if you have to start over from scratch with your audience at some point. But your email list, that you own. So if you were to prioritize the things that you need to do every single day in order to build and monetize your brand, it would be post a piece of content and do something that will collect more emails and grow your email list. That's it. Those are your main priorities. And the beauty is, once the system is set up correctly, Every single piece of authority content you make is actively building your email list while you sleep and while you're not actually actively doing it, and starting conversations with potential clients in the background. Completely automated. You see the difference here between the cold outreach and cold email and all of that grind compared to the amount of leverage that you have with this. Now, the last type is authenticity content. And this is the part where you get more personal, more raw, more vulnerable, and you show your audience the behind the scenes and who you actually are. You give them the human that they can relate and connect with. A good way to think about it is this. If you went up to any of your followers in your audience and asked them about who you are, what your values are, your interests, your story, your origin story, what it is you do, what it is you love doing, that they'd be able to give you a very clear and accurate answer. That is what your authenticity content does. It builds that deeper connection with your audience. For me, this is where I share the personal stories around my life, the failures, the struggles, the successes, the things that went well, the things that didn't go well. And I also show the things that I like doing, like riding my dirt bike, going snowboarding, mountain biking, hanging out with friends, country dancing, and just overall the behind the scenes of my life. But it's also where I get vulnerable and raw, and I share my honest takes and opinions and shared, like I said, the mistakes, the struggles, the things that did not go well for me in the past, and the things I'm not proud of, and the things that I'm planning to do in the future, and my goals, my vision, the stuff that I want. The Audi R8, for example, that's me being authentic and sharing what my goals are. And that is the content that makes people feel like they actually know you. And that's the content that allows them to trust, relate, and respect you enough to pay you thousands of dollars to work with you. Because let me say this again, people don't pay thousands of dollars to work with the most informative Instagram account. They pay to work with the person that they feel like they actually know. And authenticity content is what builds that. And over time, as your audience grows, I'd actually recommend leaning more into the authenticity a little bit, because as your audience gets bigger and there's more people seeing your content, then that's where you can show more of who you are, and you have an audience of people who actually give a shit and care and will watch and will be able to resonate and connect with you. For the most part, I literally just make the content that I feel like making, and I just naturally blend the 3 different types together throughout the week. And honestly, that flexibility is what keeps me in the game and doing it consistently, is because I'm not like sticking to a super strict plan where today I need to make this type of content even though I do not feel like making it at all. I'll usually just make whatever I feel like making, as long as it's targeting my target avatar and that I'm leaning fully into whichever type I choose to make between those 3 of growth, authority, and authenticity. The most important thing to actually stick to religiously is how much content you're making, which is at a bare minimum 1 per day. And here's one more thing that a lot of people mess up, even when they hear the 3 different types of content and the cadence and all of these different things I've talked about, is don't mix the 3 into one piece of content. Basically, don't try to make one video that is a mix of authority, growth, and authenticity all at once. Because whenever you do that, the content ends up feeling like a mess. It doesn't really hit nearly as deeply. It doesn't attract the right audience. It doesn't convert. It doesn't help your account grow. It kind of just sits there doing nothing, and is usually the type of content that you end up looking back on and being like, damn, that was a waste of time. Think of it like this. A growth video is like showing somebody the outside of your city and why it's such a great place to live and spend time. An authority video is where you introduce them to what you do and why you're the best possible option to work with. And an authenticity video is where you take the person out for a cup of coffee or some dinner so that they can get to know the real you. You don't try to do all 3 things at the same time. You pick one type, you go all in, and you try to make the experience as good as you possibly can. So every time you sit down to create a piece of content, decide from the beginning, is this going to be an authority, growth, or authenticity piece of content? Then lean all the way in on that one direction. Clean content that knows its job always performs better than the mix of content that's trying to do everything at once. All right, the last piece of the content compass, which like I said, tends to be semi-controversial, especially with the hustle culture and grind set all over the place nowadays, but is arguably the most important piece in my opinion. And that is making this whole thing sustainable. Because here's the reality, content creation, it takes work, it takes effort. There's no way around that. But the way most people approach it is what makes it completely unsustainable, because they have that perfectionism and every single post and piece of content has to be perfect. Every video has to be their best work and every post has to be polished and edited and flawless. And I get it, because I used to do the same thing all the time and I still catch myself sometimes trying to do this. I tend to be a perfectionist and it took over. I would literally spend hours making my content and trying to hit this super high level of quality that I wanted to hit. But then on the days that I wasn't really feeling it or I had a lot going on and I was busy, instead of adjusting and still making something, I just ended up doing nothing and making no content, which is the worst thing you can do in this game, because consistency and staying in this for the long term is how it's actually done. Because the people who win aren't the ones who made perfect content for 3 months and then disappeared. They're the ones who stay in the game consistently for years and actually allow compounding and time to do its thing and work. So here's what I've learned. You need to have a range of content that you can make within your system. On one end of the spectrum, you have your highest quality content you can make. The content that you make on the days where you're feeling it, where you're pumped up, where you're excited, and where you're really in flow and your creativity is just spiked to the max. And this is the content that you end up being the most proud of and that you rewatch the most, and oftentimes ends up performing the best, but also a lot of times ends up performing the worst. But then on the other end of the spectrum is what I call your MVC, your minimum viable content. This is the content that you put out on your worst days, the days where nothing seems to be going right or you're sick. Like, imagine you're literally bedridden and you still need to get out a piece of content, and this is the type of content you can still make on that day. Maybe it's a quick 30-second video shot on your phone that you're able to still get out and post. Or it's just a simple photo with a very detailed caption underneath it telling a story or providing value in some way related to the image. Whatever the absolute minimum is that you can realistically do. The point is that even on your worst days, something goes out. Because the truth is, anything that keeps you from posting is hurting you more than the super minimum viable lower quality piece of content that you put out there. Because missed days break the momentum. A rough quality post actually keeps it going, and sometimes, ironically, ends up performing the best. Like, sometimes you have a video that you just threw together in like 20 minutes that you didn't think much of and put it out there, and then you look at it a week from now and you're like, holy shit, how is this thing going as viral as it is? Which on one side is great, but on the other side kind of pisses you off, because then you look at your videos that you put so much time in that are so high quality and aren't performing nearly as well as this turd of a post that you just put out there. Some days will be a peak day, some days will be an MVC day. But most days will probably fall in the in-between of those two. All of that is fine. What's not fine is zero. And here's where this eventually leads long term. When you've built out your content system properly, eventually you're basically running your own personal media company. Basically down the road, the only thing that you're actually spending your time and energy doing is the stuff that only you can do, which is usually recording content, being you. That's it. The editing, the posting, the captions, the lead automation systems, the analytics, the DMs, all of that gets handled either by AI systems or a small team of people, so that eventually you're not sitting there editing your videos at midnight anymore. That's the end game. Not something you need to worry about now or most likely anytime in the near future, but basically what we're aiming for. And the system you're building right now is the foundation that gets you there. So that's the content compass. Your winning content format gives you a format that you genuinely enjoy making and that performs really well, attracting the right people. Your city gives you the full scope of what your brand can cover and gives you the freedom to be fully yourself. The three content types, growth, authority, and authenticity, each have a specific job in building and showing off that city, with authority being the one that converts, and authenticity, to be honest. And the sustainable system keeps you in the game long enough for everything to compound and actually work. But here's the thing. Even with all of this dialed in, you're still missing one critical piece, because content on its own doesn't actually make you money. The eyeballs need to turn into emails, the emails have to turn into conversations, and the conversations have to turn into clients. You can have amazing content, you can grow your audience, you can get incredible views, but without the right system behind it, you're basically just an influencer who's not making any money. And there are a shitload of those out there. And this is where the inbound flywheel comes in. And it's the piece that honestly most creators and influencers are missing. Most people view client acquisition as a funnel. Stuff goes in the top, trickles through the middle, and comes out the bottom as a client. It's a one-way trip. And that's how cold outreach works. That's how Upwork works. And that's how those types of platforms work. I used to live in that world. You send a cold email, a certain percentage will reply, a certain percentage will book a call, a certain percentage will turn into a client. Everything funnels down and out the bottom, and when a client pops out the bottom, then you go back to the top and you start over again. Nothing compounds and nothing builds with that. But a personal brand with the right content and system is completely different. It's a flywheel. Now, a flywheel is a wheel that once you start pushing it, it keeps spinning, gaining more and more momentum. And every new piece of content, every new follower, every email subscriber, every client, every piece of social proof, they all add energy to the system and make it spin faster. Your content brings in new people. Your backend system converts them to email subscribers. Your emails turn some of those into clients. Your clients get results. Those results become stories you tell in your content, and that content brings in more new people. And the whole thing accelerates over time, especially when you start getting positive word of mouth and referrals. That's compounding, and that's leverage that comes with content creation and building your personal brand in order to attract high ticket clients. And it's the complete opposite of the cold outreach grind where you're literally starting over every single month. Now, here's where most people still get this wrong, even when they understand the flywheel concept, is that they still view the process as this clean, linear flow. Someone watches a video, they opt in for the lead magnet, they're added to your email list, they get an email, book a call, and become a client. Bada bang, bada boom, done. Simple step-by-step path. And yeah, it can happen. I've had it happen, but that's not how it works most of the time. The more realistic way to think about this, and how I like to think about it, is more like a web or a digital ecosystem that you're building. Because what actually happens most of the time is this. Someone comes across one of your videos, they go check out your profile, and then they watch more of your content. And then maybe they opt into your lead magnet and they start getting your newsletters. A week later, they see another one of your videos on their feed, and then they go check out one of your YouTube videos. Then they see you pop up somewhere else, and then they forget about you for a while because shit happens and life happens. Then you eventually show back up in their feed again, and then at some point, after bouncing around your ecosystem for weeks, months, or even years, they reach a tipping point. Something happens in their life that makes them go, okay, I'm ready. I need to take action on this. And in that moment, they're going to be looking for the next step. And here's the critical thing. Your job isn't to force them down this strict linear funnel or path. Your job is to make sure that wherever they are in your digital ecosystem, when they reach that tipping point, the next step is sitting right there waiting for them. That's why I call this the inbound flywheel, not a funnel, not a linear path, a connected ecosystem that keeps spinning and keeps people circulating through it until they're ready. So what does this actually look like when it's built properly? So at the center, you have your content, and that's what brings new people into the ecosystem. Off of your content, you have lead magnets that capture people's emails and bring them deeper into your world. Once they're on your email list, now you've got your newsletter and email sequences that build trust, provide value, and naturally introduce them to working with you. And you have the next step towards working with you clearly visible at every step in your bio, in your videos, in your emails. So when someone hits that tipping point, they know exactly what to do next. And overall, your main job is to make sure that every part of your ecosystem is connected to one another. And there's always a natural next step available no matter where someone is. Now, here's one more thing I want you to understand about the inbound flywheel, because this is something that I actually was really excited about when I really understood and realized it, which is that a personal brand with a proper flywheel isn't only gonna bring you inbound clients. It also makes literally every other channel perform better for you. Your cold outreach starts converting higher because when somebody gets your email, they look you up, and instead of finding nothing, they find a real person with real content, your brand, real credibility, and real authority. And suddenly your cold email is coming from a trusted source. And for example, your Upwork proposals stand out because instead of just being another freelancer with a generic profile, you have a body of content that backs up what you're saying and shows that you are an actual expert in your field and what you do. And that content building trust, connecting with that person, allowing them to relate with you and see who you actually are, and selling them on working with you before you ever hop on a call or even talk with them. And this is actually how I started landing clients way easier at my marketing agency years ago, when our main outreach channels were cold email and Upwork. And your referrals increase because instead of somebody referring your service, offer, or company, they're referring you. They're basically going to people being like, hey, you need to check out this person's content. And then boom, now that person is part of your ecosystem. And your sales calls get dramatically easier. And this is one of the most obvious things that I notice because, like I've said before, I hate sales calls. And literally all of your content and everything that they've seen with your personal brand, your emails, your newsletter, your email sequences, and all of your content you're putting out on Instagram, YouTube, or whatever it is you're doing within your digital ecosystem that they've been bouncing around and circulating through, that has all warmed them up and sold them on the idea of working with you. So by the time they get on the call with you, you're not necessarily really selling anything at that point. You're literally just seeing if it's a right fit for you guys to work together. And like I said before, I fucking hate sales calls. But once I really started diving into my content and building my personal brand and leveraging it in my cold outreach that I was doing at the time, then my sales calls went from being super scripted sales calls that I was following to literally just hopping on the call with somebody to see if I could help them out and letting them know what it would look like, and then getting started from there. I didn't close everybody on every sales call, obviously, still, but it did make the process a hell of a lot easier. That's the amplifier effect. Once the flywheel is spinning, everything gets easier. So that's the inbound flywheel. It's the back-end system that takes all of the eyeballs your content brings in, pulls them into your ecosystem, keeps them circulating until they hit their tipping point, and then making sure the path to working with you is always right there in front of them. Without it, content is just noise, which is the majority of content out there. But with it, every video, every post, every email is a part of this system that compounds over time. And when you put all three of those together, your brand North Star, your content compass, and the inbound flywheel, that's your content to client OS. That's the entire system. You know who you are, you know who you're talking to, you're creating the right content, and you have the back-end system in place that turns it all into high-paying clients. Now I wanna zoom out for a second and talk about something really important, because what you're building here is actually way bigger than that. What I'm talking about is that this is about building something that changes the entire game for you, because the world is shifting fast. AI can write your emails, it can design your graphics, edit your videos, build websites, and do a whole lot of shit that we were not expecting it to be able to do for at least the next 3 to 5, maybe 10 years, but it's already here. Like with Claude Code and Claude Design and stuff like that out there now, it can literally build software and do all kinds of shit that we weren't expecting it to do for a decent while. So basically it can do a lot of things already that people used to be getting paid for. But what it can't do and will never be able to do is be you. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but it's true. It can't build trust, it can't have that human connection, it can't relate with other people, and it can't tell the stories that only you can tell. By 2030, it's predicted that 30% of jobs will be automated and basically taken over by AI. And the freelancers and service providers who survive this, it won't be the talented or the most skilled. It'll be the ones who stand out, the ones that people like, trust, and respect, the ones who became impossible to ignore, rose above the noise, and became one of one. In today's market, being good at what you do isn't enough. If nobody remembers you, trusts you, or sees you differently than the other human options and machine options, then you're just gonna keep blending in, getting overlooked and fighting for scraps against people and machines who aren't even close to as good as you. And that's the painful part, right? Like, you know you're good at what you do. You know that you're capable of so much more than what you're doing right now. But the gap between what you know you're capable of and where you actually are right now, that gap is the most frustrating and painful thing in the world. But content in a personal brand is how you close that gap. It's how you stop being a commodity, become one of one, and start becoming the obvious choice for the clients you actually want to work with. It's by far the most valuable asset you can build in today's world and economy, because everything else can be copied, automated, or turned into a commodity. But you're the one thing that nobody else can be, even AI. And I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine 6 months from now, you've built this. You've got your brand North Star dialed in, your content is hitting, your system is running. You wake up and check your phone and see that you got a DM from somebody saying, hey, I've been following your content for a while and I'd really like to work with you. You check your email and somebody filled out your application overnight. You get on a call later that day and the person already knows your story, trusts you, wants to work with you, and it feels more like a conversation between two friends talking, not a sales pitch. And I'm not even kidding, that's what my calls feel like now. And you're picking and choosing who you actually want to work with, not just taking whatever you can get. And that's been a big thing for me, because back years ago running my agency, we took on every client that we possibly could and ended up dealing with a lot of clients that were a massive pain in the ass. And with that, the clients you bring on now feel more like friends than clients, because they chose to work with you because of who you are, your interests, your personality, your values, and they share those same things. And your income feels stable for the first time and is growing more than it ever has before, not because you found some hack or some secret strategy that doesn't exist. It's because you're finally building something that compounds every single day. And that's what this looks like. And that's not a fantasy. That's what happens when you use content the right way with the right system behind it. All right, so you've made it this far, and honestly, I went deep for nearly an hour, probably more at this point, and you stuck with it, which honestly, that shows that you're one of the very few people who actually takes this stuff seriously, and good on you for that. And honestly, some of you are gonna take everything that I just went over and implement it and crush it, and if that's you, seriously, please do. Everything I showed you in this video is real, it works, so go use it. But maybe for you, this probably clicked on a different level. Maybe you saw yourself in my Cape Town story. Or maybe you're in the cold outreach grind still and you felt that frustration in your chest when I described it. Or maybe you've been posting content consistently for a little while now and you've thought that your content's pretty decent, but it's led nowhere and it's not doing very well, but now you finally understand why. And maybe you're at the point where you don't want more new information anymore. You actually want somebody in the trenches with you, actually helping you build this thing the right way the first time. And if that's where you're at, here's what I want you to know. I actually work with a tiny handful of people one-on-one to actually help them completely build out their content to client OS from scratch. Now, this isn't some coaching program. This isn't me handing you a bunch of templates and a course and wishing you luck. This isn't a group call every Wednesday with 80 other people where you never get your shot to actually ask a question and get real specific help. And this sure as hell ain't where I bring you on and then pass you off to some other coach who helps you instead of me. I've honestly gone through enough of that shit and spent a ton of money over the years seeing the good parts, but also the worst parts of this industry, and I refuse to be a part of that. So this is me personally sitting shoulder to shoulder with you, helping you build the machine behind your brand together. Custom from the ground up, you and I map out exactly who you are and turn it into a brand that actually feels like you. We dial in your dream avatar to the point where every piece of content you put out there feels like you're reading their mind. We architect your offer together, we build out your winning content system. You and I will set up your lead magnets, your ManyChat automations, your email infrastructure, the whole flywheel that takes strangers and turns them into clients using content in your personal brand. I'm not looking to give you a notebook full of notes that ends up going nowhere. I'm looking to actually build this thing with you and make sure it works for you so that you have a real, built out, running system and brand that's already pulling people in. And the promise from me to you, helping you land at least one new high ticket client in the next 60 days using the Content to Client OS. Now here's the thing, since this is fully one-on-one and I'm personally on every call and heavily involved in the entire process with you, I can only bring on a small handful of people at any given time. So if this is something that you actually want, then the sooner you reach out, the better. Now here's how it works. Just click the top link in the description below and it'll take you to my Instagram, and then just send me a DM with the word ready. That's it. No applications, no booking funnels, no forms, just a real conversation, me to you. And just so you know, the first message you get will be automated after you send the word ready, but everything after that will be me personally replying to you and having a conversation with you. It won't be some AI bot, VA, or automation or anything like that. And from there, we'll talk like normal humans. I'll just want to see where you're at, where you're looking to go, and what you've been struggling with. And if it sounds like we'd actually be a good fit to work together, then I'll walk you through how it all works and show you what that would look like. And if for some reason we're not a fit, then that's totally cool. I'll still give you as much advice and direction as I possibly can in the conversation to help you move forward on your own. And I also prefer sending voice messages in there so I can really dig into detail and help you as much as I can. Either way, I'm gonna help you out. That's just how I operate. So if you're ready, just hit the link in the description. It'll take you to Instagram, DM me the word ready, and let's have a conversation. Because here's what I believe. The future doesn't belong to the most talented, the cheapest, or the loudest. It belongs to the ones who rise above the noise and become one of one. And that can be you. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.